Semu is the name of a caste established in China under the Yuan dynasty. Name. Contrary to popular belief, the term Semu did not imply that caste members had colored eyes, in contrast with brown-eyed Mongol Yuan people. It in fact meant assorted categories, emphasizing the ethnic diversity of Semu people. Classification. The Semu category is appointed to people who come from Central and West Asia by Yuan dynasty. It is told that there are 31 categories among them. They had come to serve the Yuan dynasty by enfranchising under the dominant Mongol caste. The Semu were not a self-defined and homogeneous ethnic group per se, but one of the four castes of the Yuan dynasty: the Mongols, Semu, the Han, and the Southerners. Among the Semu were Buddhist Turpanugas, Tanguts and Tibetans, Nestorian Christian tribes like the Ongud, Alans, Muslim Central Asian Persian and Turkic peoples including the Khwarezmians, and Karakhanids, West Asian Jewish and other minor groups who were from even further Europe. Islam was not the religion of the Uyghurs during the Mongol Empire. The Uyghur land itself was not Muslim inhabited while the Muslim lands were towards its west. They were Nestorian, Manichaeans, and Buddhist, and by Mongol times the Buddhists and Nestorians absorbed the Manichaeans, and Buddhist clerics dominated the Mongol-employed educated sector of their own population. The Compendium of the Turkic Dialects by Kashgari included among the infidels the Uyghurs. It was written, just as the thorn should be cut at its root, so the Uyghurs should be struck on the eye, by Kashgari, who viewed them as untrustworthy and noted that Muslim Turks used the derogatory name Tat against the Buddhist Uyghurs whom Kashgari described as infidels. The identities of Buddhist and Uyghur were intertwined with each other. While administratively classified as Semu, many of these groups rather referred to themselves by the self-aware ethnic identities in everyday life, such as Uyghur, Muslims, Persians, Karakhanids and Khwarezmians in particular, were actually mistaken to be Uyghurs or at least from the land of the Uyghurs. Therefore, they adopted the label conferred to them by the Chinese, Hui, which was a corruption of the name Uyghur, but at the same time distinguishable from the name reserved for Buddhist Turpanugas proper. Beware of the many ethnic groups classified as Semu during the Yuan. Only the Muslim Hui managed to survive into the Ming period as a large collective identity with self-awareness of common identity spanning across the whole China. Other ethnic groups were either small and confined to limited localities, or were forced to assimilate into the Han Chinese or Muslim Hui. The historian Frederick W. Mote wrote that the usage of the term social classes for this system was misleading and that the position of people within the four-class system was not an indication of their actual social power and wealth, but just entailed degrees of privilege to which they were entitled institutionally and legally. So a person's standing within the classes was not a guarantee of the standing, since there were rich and well socially standing Chinese while there were less rich Mongol and Semu than there were Mongol and Semu who lived in poverty and were ill-treated. The reason for the order of the classes and the reason why people were placed in a certain class was the date they surrendered to the Mongols, and had nothing to do with their ethnicity. The earlier they surrendered to the Mongols, the higher they were placed, the more they held out, the lower they were ranked. The northern Chinese were ranked higher and southern Chinese were ranked lower because southern China withstood and fought to the last before caving in. Major commerce during this era gave rise to favorable conditions for private southern Chinese manufacturers and merchants. When the Mongols placed the Uyghurs of the Kingdom of Kachcha over the Koreans at the court, the Korean king objected. Then the Mongol Emperor Kublai Khan rebuked the Korean king, saying that the Uyghur king of Kachcha was ranked higher than the Karakhanid ruler, who in turn was ranked higher than the Korean king. who was ranked last, because the Uyghurs surrendered to the Mongols first, the Karluks surrendered after the Uyghurs, and the Koreans surrendered last, and that the Uyghurs surrendered peacefully without violently resisting. Koreans were ranked as Han people along with Northern Chinese. Japanese historians like Uematsu, Sugiyama and Morita criticized the perception that a four-class system existed under Mongol rule, and Funada Yoshiyuki questioned the very existence of the Semu as a class. Korean women married Indian Uyghur and Turkish Semu men. A rich merchant from the Malabar Sultanate, Abu Ali, was associated closely with the Malabar royal family. After falling out with them, he moved to Yuan Dynasty China and received a Korean woman as his wife and a job from the Mongol emperor. The woman was formerly Sanga's wife and her father was Chai Ingyu during the reign of Chungyeo of Goryeo. Recorded in the Dongkak-Tongam, Goryoza and Lu Mengyan's Zhong'anji, Sanga was a Tibetan, Tamil Hindu Indian merchants traded in Guangzhou during the Yuan dynasty. Indian Hindu statues were found in Guangzhou dating to this period. Gypsies were called Luoli Hui. The term Luri, which was of Persian origin, was where Luoli derived from. Jew Hui was a name for the Jews' lineages. Among the Hui or Hui, there were in fact Muslim lineages that have migrated to China via Central Asia by sea route prior to the Yuan migration of merchants, adventurers, craftsmen and servicemen from the Muslim world to China. These Muslims were not previously known as Hui, but have come to associate themselves with the Muslims from the land of the Khwarezm by the mere fact of common religious identity. Hui has thus become synonymous with the Islamic religion in the Chinese language since the Ming period. Besides identifying themselves as Hui, the Semu Muslims of the Yunnan province, especially those descended from the Khwarezmian statesman Sayyid Ajal Shams al-Din Omar, or Sayyid Ajal, came to be labeled as Panthay wherever they migrated to in Southeast Asia, including Myanmar and Thailand. This name Panthay is particular to the Yunnan Hui and is not shared by Hui in other parts of China such as Fujian and Ningxia. Zhanghe is probably the best known Panthay Hui in the West. The learned Semu, including scribes, interpreters and statesmen who served the Mongol military class, were known for their contributions to Chinese literature and sciences. Many of them became masters of Chinese poetry and also helped compose state-commissioned historical works on previous dynasties. The privileged position in the Yuan bureaucracy was in part due to the Mongol military class's distrust of the native Khitai and Manji subjects. One such Yuan Semu mandarin and poet was Guan Yanshi, a Turk of disputed origin. Soldiers. After the fall of the Yuan, many Semu intellectuals and soldiers, due to the less entrenched loyalty to the Mongols, also became quickly assimilated into the Ming political culture and became prominent mandarins and aristocrats. Some no longer retained separate ethnic identity and became Han Chinese. Others still served the Ming court as Muslim Hui. The Ming court's tolerance for loyal Muslims and respect for their practices and ethnic identity partially explains the strength and vitality of the Muslim Hui community in modern China, compared to other Semu groups such as the Christians and Jews. Similar practices in other areas of the Mongol Empire. At the same time, the Mongols imported Central Asian Muslims to serve as administrators in China. The Mongols also sent Han Chinese and Khitans from China to serve as administrators over the Muslim population in Bukhara in Central Asia, using foreigners to curtail the power of the local peoples of both lands. Han Chinese were moved to Central Asian areas like Beshbalik, Al-Malik, and Samarkand by the Mongols, where they worked as artisans and farmers. Alans were recruited into the Mongol forces with one unit called Right Alan Guard, which was combined with recently surrendered soldiers, Mongols, and Chinese soldiers stationed in the area of the former kingdom of Khachoan in Beshbalik. The Mongols established a Chinese military colony led by Chinese General Qi Kongzhi. After the Mongol conquest by Genghis Khan, foreigners were chosen as administrators and co-management with Chinese and Karakites of gardens and fields in Samarkand was put upon the Muslims as a requirement, since Muslims were not allowed to manage without them. The Mongol-appointed governor of Samarkand was a Karakite, held the title Taishi. Familiar with Chinese culture, or his name was a high. Han Chinese officials and colonists were sent by the Mongol Yuan dynasty to areas of Lingbei province. Discrimination. Yuan dynasty. Genghis Khan and the following Yuan emperors forbade Islamic practices like halal butchering, forcing Mongol methods of butchering animals on Muslims, and other restrictive decrees continued. Muslims had to slaughter sheep in secret. Genghis Khan directly called Muslims and Jews slaves, and demanded that they follow the Mongol method of eating rather than the halal method. Circumcision was also forbidden. Jews were also affected, and forbidden by the Mongols to eat kosher. Toward the end, corruption and the persecution became so severe that Muslim generals joined Han Chinese in rebelling against the Mongols. The Ming founder Zhou Yuanshang had Muslim generals like Lan Yu who rebelled against the Mongols and defeated them in combat. Some Muslim communities had the name in Chinese which meant barracks, and also mean thanks. Many Hui Muslims claim it is because that they played an important role in overthrowing the Mongols, and it was named in thanks by the Han Chinese for assisting them. The Muslims in the Semu class also revolted against the Yuan dynasty in the Ispah rebellion, but the rebellion was crushed and the Muslims were massacred by the Yuan loyalist commander Chen Yuding. After the massacre, the remaining Jews and Muslims escaped. Some were back to their own country, but some, like Jews, escaped to Guangdong. Ming Dynasty. After expelling the Mongols, the Ming Dynasty was soon founded. Because of the Semu help, some of them were being employed into the central government. However, the Ming Dynasty enforced assimilation to Chinese customs, such as banning used their own languages, customs, names, and instead switching to speaking Chinese and using Chinese names and intermarrying with Han people. The aim for it is to reduce Semu's population, since Semu was in the second class in Yuan and used to help the Mongols. Some Hui claimed that the order was secretly done by the Ming Hongu Emperor to protect them from attacks, since they stood out while they thought Zhou was a Hui too. Indeed, Zhou was not a Hui, while at the time only the Semu used this name. But in the middle period of Ming Dynasty, the royalties separated Semu into different groups, while the groups as Muslims and Tibetans were still many. The Islam and Tibetan religions have survived until today, but the minority groups such as Jews, most of the customs were no more, leaving them into the Han group. This separation continued until the establishment of the Republic of China. Although the Communist Party of China founded the People's Republic, Chinese are scientifically separated into more groups, which is now determined to be as many as 56 different ethnic groups. Some people claim that this number is higher than the periods before. The new separation doesn't mean there are only 56 ethnic groups. This list doesn't include small populations like Jewish. Even if such ethnicities are so few in numbers, they still continue to exist in China. The Ming Dynasty allowed Islam and Judaism to be practiced and issued edicts that said they conformed to Confucianism, while it banned religions such as Nestorian Christianity, Manichaeism, and the White Lotus sect. Nestorian Christianity and Manichaeanism died out during the Ming Dynasty, while Islam and Judaism were protected. Around 1376, the 30-year-old Chinese merchant Lin Yu visited Hormuz in Persia, converted to Islam, and married Semu girl and brought her back to Quanzhou in Fujian. The Confucian philosopher Li Ji was the descendant. This was recorded in the Lin and Li genealogy. An anti-pig slaughter edict led to speculation that the Zheng emperor adopted Islam due to his use of Muslim eunuchs who commissioned the production of porcelain with Persian and Arabic inscriptions in white and blue color. Muslim eunuchs contributed money in 1496 to repairing Niyuji Mosque. Central Asian women were provided to the Zheng emperor by a Muslim guard and Sayyid Hussein from Hami. The guard was Yu Yung and the women were Yuai. It is unknown who really was behind the anti-pig slaughter edict. The speculation of him becoming a Muslim is remembered alongside his excessive and debauched behavior along with his concubines of foreign origin. Muslim Central Asian girls were favored by Zheng like how Korean girls were favored by Shand. A Yuai or concubine was kept by Zheng. Foreign origin Yuai and Mongol women were favored by the Zheng emperor. Tatar and Central Asian women were bedded by Zheng, and he wore Mongol clothing and was fluent in Mongol language, and he adopted Persian, Buddhist, and Mongol names and titles. Probably studied Persian and Tibetan as well. Zheng received Central Asian Muslim Semu women from his Muslim guard Yu Yong. Gan was the name of one of his Muslim concubines. The Uyghurs of Taoyuan of the remnants of Uyghurs from Turpan from the kingdom of Kachou.